Welcome into the Quest Number 9 podcast. My name is Seth Warner. On this podcast, we talk about Kentucky basketball from a fan's perspective. On this episode, we're talking about the La Familia, the Kentucky alumni team, beating out the Ville, the Louisville alumni team, to advance to the semifinals of the TBT, where Kentucky was able to win Game 3, where they were able to come out with a 6-point win over the Ville with many heavy contributors from multiple guys, where Archie Goodwin, who did not play 2 out of the first 3 games, was able to come in and give this Kentucky alumni team a big lift, a big burst, leading the team with 22 points, having 19 of those in the second half, only having 3 points in the first half, where this Kentucky alumni team was really struggling La Familia in the first half, down as many as 10 early on, where they just were not able to make shots, be able to produce as they wanted to in the first half. A lot of missed threes, a lot of shots that just kind of rimmed out, were off rhythm, weren't engaged as much in the first half. But La Familia was able to take over in the second half, having a 10-point lead. We're down as many as 10 in the first, up as many as 10 in the second, where Willie Cauley-Stein really was able to give Montrezl Harrell some problems. We know when he's on the floor, Willie Cauley-Stein's length has always been an issue for a lot of different players, but Montrez is a good example with Willie Cauley-Stein's length, being able to get him more healthy with that ankle and more ready to go as Kentucky continues to move on with this series and beating their arch rivals at home at Memorial Coliseum, where they were able to take advantage of their scoring punch while still being a little bit hobbled, while Andrew Harrison is still – he messed up his ankle in this game. Several other Kentucky La Familia players were a little bit hobbled, but overall in this series, Kentucky was able to take the advantage, get the win with the reinforcements of Archie Goodwin scoring, like I said, 22 points to lead this team and hit the game-winning shot to seal this game away in the ending, and was able to give this La Familia team some momentum going into this next game, where it's now single elimination, and they're going to be playing the Syracuse alumni team on Sunday at 2 o'clock, I believe, where we have both of the Boeheim sons are going to be playing, and this is a pretty talented Syracuse team from what I've kind of seen. Not as talented as this Louisville team, but it's going to be a big-time matchup for La Familia as they look to advance, getting closer to that August 2nd championship game, where they'll face a non-alumni team, where they will have a chance to host if they get that far. That's how the rules are kind of work. Previously, there were rules where it's a neutral site when it was like a 64-team NCAA-style bracket, but now it's a little bit different. The alumni team will host the championship game, and hopefully that is La Familia, the Kentucky alumni team, if they get that far, but we'll have to take it one game at a time as Kentucky does advance to the next round into single elimination. And that played last night, we officially know, like I said, it's Syracuse, and we're going to be playing two of the Boeheim brothers and more talented Syracuse players. Also going on with there only being 2 weeks left of summer practice for Kentucky men's basketball, Coach Pope had his kind of first press conference of the summer. He talked about a lot of different things, talked about kind of something they've reintroduced or introduced, where players have to do their conditioning test. They don't get a jersey, their practice jersey, until they complete that. They had a couple guys just get through. It's been a process for several of them. He talked about how impactful and how good the Vegas trip was. And then he was also talking about there was a bug a virus kind of going through the team, and there were several guys under the weather. Gave a little bit of an injury report. Talked to Cam Williams, had another procedure done. He was progressing well, and then had a couple setbacks or just kind of not progressing the way they wanted him to. So he kind of, from my understanding, had a cleanup procedure where they were able to get some of the scar tissue and just clean up where that injury has continued to heal, where he came back a little early from his previous stop where he had a season injury at Washington, and he's just kind of known with his physical frame, with his athleticism, to have a tendency to get injured and have some injury issues when it comes to that kind of stuff. And having him set out game practices, but for Cam Williams in particular, what Coach Pope talked about, that he should be definitely ready for the season as we get closer and closer to that. But overall, this Kentucky roster continues to try to glue together and to put pieces in position. He kind of talked about that potential 15th spot, talking about it's not looking super likely at the moment, but we'll just kind of want to wait and see kind of spot with this roster. And we had several other players do interviews, and a story that Coach Pope talked about with kind of the bug that's going around. Zoom Diallo had it for a little bit. It was just kind of a little bit of a sickness that was going around the team, but Zoom was kind of under the weather yesterday, where he was not feeling well, was not really kind of ready to go, but was able to get up, went to practice, was able to practice. Coach Pope said it was a pretty tough practice, but was able to play, was able to go out there and contribute. Didn't look 100%, but was able to play. And he was coming in today, not totally sure what Zoom would look like today. What they had a lift, and then they had film that they were going to look at from the previous day's practice, the scrimmage, and how ready to go he would be after being sick and after having a pretty tough practice and having to really hit it head first coming into today. But Coach Pope came in at 6 a.m. coming into his office, and the lights were already on, and he saw Zoom out there already in a full sweat. So he'd already been in there working, had already been on it. It wasn't kind of a thing, he needed to come in or someone asked him to come in. He'd been under the weather previously. So really the staff, even depending on how sick he was, might not want him to come in. Not looking great the day before, but still came in, was putting in the work. For Coach Pope, that just really, he talked about that showing his dedication to being this team's leader and setting the tone, being vocal and being just impactful. Talked about Alex Wilkins and his just ability to create, his just elite scoring ability, playmaking, and just the combination of playmaking that this team has. They were also talking about the defensive upside of this team with their elite length and just having a really high IQ team, having a top 30-ish defense last year that's good for Coach Pope, showing that this team, even though it doesn't have as many elite defenders, Otega Owe, Jaden Quentin's a guy that didn't play a lot but had several other guys like that, Modi Abate. But overall, just having a lot of guys that are high IQ defenders and have size, length, and athleticism on their side. And if we can get them all to buy into the defensive system, he thinks that that's something that could be. Big Frank had an interview. He talked about it, that's something that he thinks is kind of underrated with this team, with their size, their length, their athleticism, their high IQ, that they could be a really good defensive team this coming year, and just their overall impact and ability to impact this game and be able to be disruptive on the defensive end. When they were doing the interviews, KSR was talking about, they asked them all one question, and what is one thing that Coach Pope always says, and they were saying they got a very interesting response from all of them. It was a very similar response that Coach Pope always says 2 feet, 2 hands when you're in the paint, trying to control the ball, staying under control, not high turnovers. They were talking about how if they don't have high turnovers, this offense is going to be very hard to stop. And with possessions, if you can control a possession, you very much see that with this team. If you can push it, you can create numbers. And if you don't give the other team easy opportunities with our length, with our size, with our athleticism, just being very versatile and being able to impact the game, this Kentucky team could be very impactful at the college level next year and being able to make an impact at all 5 positions, defensively and offensively. Each individual guy playing their role and understanding how the pace of the game is going to work and how just the impact that it could bring. Alex Wilkins had an interview and he talked about John Wall and just some of the other guys that he looked up to. He talked about just before he even came here watching film on his teammates, just trying to get a good feel, and he talked about the connection of this team and how they were able to make a quick connection and be able to gel quickly and be able to create a bond and being able to build out a team very quickly with their size, with their camaraderie, and with their just overall connection and being able to build the best team possible and being around each other the most comfortable. And they all kind of talked about the Vegas trip and the positives of that. Coach Pope talked about it being a potential yearly thing with the summer league and how the positive impacts of that. And Alex Wilkins, he talked about in particular John Wall, Shea, some guys that he's gotten Shea in particular, some comps to, and how that this team just loves to work and how that they've kind of what I keep on saying is the camaraderie of this team. And overall, Zaire Hawthorne is another guy that did an interview. He talked about just how cool it's been having his brother in the lodge and having someone in his corner that's been previously through this whole recruiting and whole Kentucky development process, with him most likely being kind of a more development guy, potential redshirt, but redshirts don't really exist with the new 5-and-5 rule. But overall, Kentucky just being able to get in the system, being able to continue to develop as a team going into these last 2 weeks of summer practices as we get ready for the fall season and as we continue to get more information about what the schedule is going to look like and what Kentucky's potential preseason games and what this Kentucky schedule could look like and the impact of it going forward, with this team trying to balance out and figure out exactly what all the roles are going to look like, guys adapting to new schedules, a little bit of everything, and just from overall the impact of each other and what this offense could look like as guys recover from injuries and just overall the roster figures out its positions. Coach Pope also talked about Justin McBride and his impact, but he's been under the weather, having an illness this past week. And Coach Pope didn't in particular talk about it, but it's been reported. Also, Njai has been really impactful these last couple of weeks. His shot's been better, getting better feel. Some of his drills have translated more to the games. That's very impactful with him as being one of the guys with I think can expand the floor and the ceiling of this team with his length, with his athleticism, with his shot making and just stretchability. If you have a guy his size, being able to knock down threes while being able to protect the rim, rebound, and be able to take guys off of closeouts and off of just little moves that make his shot almost impossible to block. And trying to figure out that 4th spot in particular with Justin McBride and Njai both being brought in kind of to compete for it a little bit. Justin McBride more experience, but Njai with more professional experience, where Justin's more college experience. And with the American game, but seems like with Justin McBride's sickness, Njai has been able to kind of take that starting spot with also Cam Williams being hurt, playing two wings. But with Kentucky, we continue to go into these next 2 weeks trying to get more and more comfortable with this team as they, like I said, prepare for this preseason and coming back for the fall semester. And that's all from the Quest Number 9 podcast. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. You can go find me at Quest Number 9 on Instagram and Twitter. And I'll see you next time. Go Cats.